And welcome back to Retrospect My Fantasy. Today we are continuing our work on the Al-Qadim World Guide, transitioning from 2nd edition Al-Qadim to the new 5th edition D&D setting. Now, before we get back into that, got a couple things to go over. Number one is that you see that the door is open, and that is because of two things. One, as soon as housemate Ryan gets up, I need to go and talk to him, so we'll be taking a break right about then. Number two, it is hot as hell right now where I'm at, and I'm not used to even half, well, I prefer half the temperature that it currently is. So, with that, doors open, allows air conditioning to get in, I got my fan going, we can stay slightly cooler. As you can tell, well, maybe you can't, I'm already sweating and I'm a little flushed from the heat all day, so every little bit helps. Next thing is that this Saturday, from noon to 9 p.m., I'll be doing an I Fucked Up stream, where we will be starting off with a little bit of Warframe, just to let people trickle in, and then we will move on to Jackbox Party Pack 3 and Jackbox Party Pack 4 in succession. All the games, and then all the games. After that, we'll take a break, I'll probably get some food, and then we will come back with the remainder of our time period playing Realm Royal. So, I hope you will join me for that. If you need to know what I messed up on, that is, I missed a session thanks to our internet service provider, and during our 1-year celebration, I got too intoxicated and could not complete what I told you I would. So, giving you a little bit of extra time for that, and making up those two events. Now, to our normal stuff. The first thing is that we have a Discord, and I highly recommend you go and check that out. There's a lot of discussion boards in there, there's a lot of gaming boards in there. I'm adding a whole bunch more, there's a whole bunch of voice comm, there's suggestions pages, Q&A, anything you guys could possibly want, please let me know and I will do my best to provide. Number two is that we are partnered with Humble. So, if you are looking to pick anything up in the brand near future, and I highly recommend you go and check them out, even if you're not looking to buy anything right now, because right now and for the next couple days, Guns of Icarus is free. So, go get it. Go get it. It's a really fun game. I promise you. And if you want to see how fun it can be, go check out the archive, link to which is down below, and you'll be able to see, oh no, I haven't put those up yet. Go to our VODs, and you'll be able to see our Tuesday stream from this week and last week where we played Guns of Icarus, and it's a lot of fun. But the main reason why I want you to check out Humble is because every time you buy something from Humble, regardless of whether or not you use my link, someone else's link, or no link at all, use help support charity. And if you happen to use one of your favorite content providers or content creators link, you help support them and the charity of their choosing. Our charity happens to be Doctors Without Borders, which I believe is one of the most necessary charities out there. I mean, there's a lot of very good charities, St. Jude's, Children's Hospital, Child's Play, the Cancer Society, tons of amazing. But I personally believe that getting more doctors out to see more people who can't otherwise see them is probably one of the best things we can do. Help prevent some of those things that would go untreated and kill people. And lastly, before we jump back into our redesign of Al-Qadim from 5th edition, or from 2nd edition to 5th, is that we have a Patreon. And the reason I bring this one up last on Thursdays is because that's when it's most important for you guys to hear it. Because if you are a patron, you get a bunch of cool perks on top of being able to support me, which helps do all of this. Everything we do is thanks to people like you, supporters, who help us out in any way they can. Whether that be just getting the word out there so that we can get more followers or possibly even subscribers, to mining for bits, or just buying bits and donating them to the tip jar, to Humble, to Patreon. All of that is you. But at Patreon, if you become a patron at the $20 level, upon the completion of any of our Design Works projects, you will get a copy. In this case, that is our Al-Qadim World Guide, which is soon going to be followed by the Player's Guide and then the DM Guide, which will include the Bestiary. So there's a whole bunch of Al-Qadim that we're going to be going through before we move on to our next project, which could be anything from a board game, a magic set, a video game. We've got a lot of cool stuff to check out and to try and build. So with that, let us get into this. Oh, wait. No, wait. I forgot. There's one more thing. And why isn't it showing up? Hold on a second. This one should be the Winamp playlist. There we go. So, go back to our live. So you see this little box down here that just appeared? That is our Winamp playlist. And the reason that's so important is because all the music you are hearing from the beginning of the stream to the end of it is provided by the Free Music Archive. And in order to comply with their usage agreement, down here you can see the artist and the track title in case you want to go and download it yourself or support the artist in other ways. Now, let us get back into it. So we just finished up with the architecture section for Al-Qadim, and we are now continuing forward with some more stuff for the Al-Hadhar, the city dwellers, and their culture. Starting with the role of women in their culture. This ought to be very interesting. So keep in mind, this is what D&D designers... Oh wait, what page are we on? Cancel that. But this is what the D&D designers, after looking at everything that they could reasonably dig up about Middle Eastern culture in the 70s. Okay, so we are on page 1, or left page. This is what they decided that the rules for the role of women in their typically male-centric RPG fantasy games set in the Middle East, which, I mean, let's be honest, as far as modern conceptions go, does not exactly have the best track record with women's rights. Let's take a look here. Let's see here. In unenlightened times, before the lawgiver spread throughout the land of fate, the roles of men and women were simple. Men ruled the household and were responsible for its livelihood. Women kept the house and raised the children. The coming of the lawgiver and the establishment of the Grand Caliphate have broadened women's roles. Hey, look at that. Among the Al-Hadhar. But a good deal of tradition remains. The land of fate can be said to provide an opportunity for equality, but any town-dwelling woman who desires that equality must be willing to grasp it for herself. Today, throughout most of Zakara's settlements, a man is still responsible for the wife and the family, and he is expected to provide a living. The woman is responsible for upholding the man's honor through moral behavior. That is what tradition states. She maintains the house and rears the children, though an upper-class woman may oversee servants who work in the household. Rarely does she relinquish the duties where her children are concerned. According to Zakara tradition, women live apart from men in the same household. Women's quarters are the harem. A similar concept for men is the salama or salamilik, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. The harem is a separate area where only women and children may go. The master of the household may enter, but in general, even he does not. Or he may ask for permission to enter out of respect for the women's privacy. In a poor household, the harem is no more than a room with a tapestry hung over the door. In the Grand Caliph's palace, the harem is a magnificent complex guarded by its own elite unit of eunuch mamluks. Al-Badian women have always had a high degree of equality with their men. The nomads. Wrong one. That should be in a different spot. Cut you out, put a space there. Put you in here. Women have always had a high degree of equality with men. Harsh, impoverished lifestyle demand that every person do his or her part to ensure the tribe's survival and success. This kind of equality has only recently come to the town-dwelling women. Nonetheless, today there are bold women among the Al-Hadhar who act as merchants, artisans, and mercenaries. Who take up many of the same roles as men. A woman may receive land and land grants and maintain them under the same conditions as a man. A woman may choose to serve in the armed forces in times of peace or war. In contrast, men of suitable age may be drafted into service. So women may choose, but men can be drafted. And we're going to get rid of that. Get rid of those parentheticals. Though certain groups and fellowships exclude them. Women have served as deadly assassins, wise viziers, and brave generals. They have been as caliphs, emirs, and sultanas. The tales of Zakara are filled with women who are wiser, bolder, and more capable than the males in their own families. Perhaps it is telling, however, that a woman has yet to hold the title of Grand Caliph. Though several have acted as regents for their sons until they have reached the age of majority. We'll do commas for that. Or a comma for that. Nothing in the philosophy of the lawgiver prevents a woman from being the Grand Caliph, but the men of Zakara are still resistant to crossing that final threshold. Well, it sounds a lot like modern society coming out of... Actually, this wouldn't be the 70s. This would be 80s. No. Hold on a sec. Yes, there we go. Hey, second edition D&D. Hey there, Al-Qadim. Arabian Adventures. When were you copywritten? Arabian Adventures. By Jeff Grubb and Adria Heyday, I think. Andrea Heyday. Let's see here. 1992, so early 90s is when this was copywritten. Boop. Alright, I believe that is another page down. Nope, wrong one. That button. Completed pages. And we are on page 53. Alright, and then for 54, it looked like we're talking about marriage, which is probably going to go over marriage rituals. And then polygamy. Alright. That is a very touchy subject. Okay. 24, bold, center adjusted. Perfect. Marriages are essentially contracts between two families, arranged by parents even while the children involved are young. In many regions, the best marriage is still a traditional one, the union between a girl and her first cousin on her father's side. If two young people without this relationship desire a love match, the parents may still approve provided station, faith, race, and profession do not stand in the way. The reason some of these are important, station, you can go like up or down one station, but really you're supposed to kind of stay where you're located. Like, merchants marry merchants. Poor people marry poor people. Royalty marry royalty. Faith, that mainly provides the pantheist league versus non-pantheist league. That's really what that means. Race is only really touched on here because in D&D has actual different sentient races that can marry and interbreed. That's where we get things like half-elves and mules, which are half-dwarves that can't breed, or half-orcs or things like that. The general rule of thumb in Al-Qadim is if they can produce viable offspring, fine-ish. Obviously, like, some people have their own prejudices one way or the other, but grandchildren and the continuation of the family line is what's most important. The profession, I'm not really sure. I guess something like a sailor might not be able to marry a merchant simply because the sailor isn't ever really around. But I don't know. I don't know that one very well. In general, a civilized man may marry beneath his station, but a woman does not. Oh, there we go. A bad match may voided by parents or authorities. May be. Is there a word missing? In poems of the Rawans, such a parental impediment is often the start of evening-long tales of how the lovers are split and apart and pass through all manner of adventures before they are at last reunited and married. So, Romeo and Juliet stuff. As in many areas of their lives, heroic and adventurous men and women may ignore tradition and do pretty much as they please. Or, perhaps it is the other way around. To avoid an unwanted marriage, an average city dweller suddenly becomes a freewheeling, far-ranging adventurer. If a woman is independent, usually defined as capable of making her own living, even if she marries, she is considered a separate legal entity under the law. She can hold property apart from her husband. In contrast, a woman who is dependent on her spouse must share any property she attains during her marriage with the exception of the amount she brings with her to the marriage. A husband may always have property or possessions that are considered separate from their wives. That's kind of shitty. You know, since we just dealt with marriage, why don't we skip ahead a little bit from polygamy and snag divorce? Because it is more concurrent with what this topic is. Boop. Can we fit the whole thing? Yes, we can. Really Bob the Builder up in here. Divorce. Prior to the establishment of enlightened civilization, a man of the coastal cities would divorce his wife merely by declaration. She would then be sent packing to relatives or friends, taking whatever she owned before the marriage with her. Under the law of the lawgiver, women have greater protection. Both parties must agree to the divorce, or one partner may ask a Qadi for a ruling. Should the Qadi rule against such a split, the pair must live together and attempt to reconcile for the next year before asking again. A woman who is granted a divorce may rejoin her original family or become independent, though a woman does not need to be divorced to be independent in the land of fate. Bam. Is it bad to have those two next to each other? I think it's I think it's a better way of putting of arranging that. So what are we on? 55? 54. Oh boy. Now we get into a touchy subject. Crap. What is it? 12. 12.37. Okay. This one. Bam. Yeah, we'll do polygamy. Hey, it was the right size all along. Polygamy, the practice of having one or more spouses at a time, is rare but tolerated in most of Zakara's settlements. There we go. Right punctuation. The traditional agreement, a husband with a typical arrangement, a husband with more than one wife, is more common. 4 wives is the unofficial maximum. According to legend, the first Shair, had 4 genie wives, and Zakaran tradition reflects that legend. In general, only wealthy men can afford more than one wife. In part because every new wife may bring forth more children. Really, you don't say. Many upper-class men feel one wife is sufficient, however. However, the first wife... sufficient, however. Why is there a comma there? The first wife must approve of any additional wives in the household. If she agrees to share her husband, she will still retain authority over the household. Some men keep courtesans, as do many independent women, but only with their wives' permission. Is that supposed... While Zakaran law does not prohibit this practice, it doesn't endorse it either. Tradition demands that a man be married before taking a courtesan. To avoid marriage entirely is now considered shameful. In the past, Zakara's Grand Caliph rarely married. Instead, they maintained large harems of courtesans and concubines, some of whom were gifts from lesser rulers. This allowed them to neatly bypass the four-wife. Yes. No, that doesn't work. It would be limitation. Bypass the four-wife limitation of proper society, and to only recognize offspring who showed promise or worth. Both children of courtesans, freeborn courtiers, or concubines, slaves owned by the Grand Caliph, have risen to power in this fashion. Today's Grand Caliph does have 4 wives, however, in addition to a large harem. This practice has helped endear him to the common people. While a polygamous marriage generally places all wives under one roof, a second tradition is common amongst trade cities of the Golden Gulf, especially the Pearl cities. In this arrangement, each wife lives in a different port, a port of call. She works as an independent woman selling the goods of her husband's convoy. There is actually a pretty good idea. These wives know each other, but they may never meet. Upon the death of their spouse, each fully owns the trading post she operated during the marriage. The moralist governments of the League of the Pantheon have outlawed the practice in their cities. Polyandry, the practice of having multiple husbands. Oh. Not quotations. Oh. Comma. Is a custom on the Isle of Afyal. This practice arose because many of Afyal's men are traders who are often far from home. A woman is allowed to take many husbands in the course of her life, though always with consent of the first. She owns and manages the trading company for which all her husbands work. This system has resulted in a tight circle of female-dominant mercantile houses. Their combined power rivals that of the Padishah of Padishah of Eiffel himself. Wow. The moment I read the word Padishah, I immediately went to Dune. Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. If you didn't know, Dune is largely based on Middle Eastern culture. At that point in their society. So, while we are moving into this next subject, I actually wanted... No, I have not. What's escape polygamy? And how are you doing, Peter Girl? Or, sorry. Perler Girl. I'm sorry. Looks like it's time for me to get glasses. Is it like a documentary? Because that could be fascinating. I mean, considering that this was written by a bunch of D&D nerds in the early 90s / late 80s, and they're trying to invoke the feeling of kind of like Middle Eastern society while still maintaining um, their brand, the TSR brand of like how they like the fact that they effectively allow female adventurers in this Middle Eastern setting when at the time in the 90s any information you would have gotten that wasn't information about like 70s Middle Eastern culture or slightly earlier, essentially like post World War II Middle Eastern culture, would have been heavily against women and misogynistic. This is a very progressive like world that they've created for the Middle Eastern setting. Oh God, no, that does sound like a very interesting documentary. Where's a pen? We'll write that down to check out because that is the kind of thing that is very fascinating to see from the outside. But no, having to live through like a polygamy cult or anything like that, where you are conditioned outside of what you would normally agree with, is disgusting and horrible. Um, and considering that polygamy is such a touchy subject, I'm actually very surprised with how like they handled it in D&D. Essentially what they say is polygamy's cool if all the parties agree, and both men and women are allowed to practice polygamy assuming all parties agree. And then the group of extremists, extreme moralists, the League of the Pantheon, don't allow polygamy at all, despite the fact that what we consider extremist Islamic tradition today to be like all about polygamy. Like, this is a very interesting study of what the writers at TSR for Dungeons and Dragons thought about the Middle Eastern world at the time, given the amount of research they were allowed to go through before beginning writing. Alright, I've jotted... I should probably... TV show... Lifetime. Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, there's a typo. Alright, let's see here. And... Bap. Oh, I can only imagine. It must be horrifying. Especially trying to come out of... like, readjust to what we consider a normal society after living in that type of scenario. It must just be horrible. Just effectively the culture shock of it. The children of Al-Hadhar are raised in the women's quarters until they reach the age of 5. Yep, that's... There's not many things in this world that truly sicken me, but the exploitation of others against their will. Like, actually, no. Fuck that. There's no exploiting someone with their will. All exploitation is against somebody's will. And exploiting people is one of the few things in this world that I have not become jaded and given up hope on changing. One of the reasons why I don't buy Nike, despite the fact that they run the city that I live in. The children of Al-Hadhar are raised in women's quarters until they reach the age of 5. At this time, boys leave the harem and live with the men in the Salamalik. They've cut down on a lot, but they used to knowingly use Taiwanese sweatshops, and Thai sweatshops are the type of thing that we put a stop to in the in like the 50s and 60s. Like the horrible working conditions, hundreds of people, no ventilation. Now they've largely moved away to to similarly cheap labor in China, but China has like safety laws for their factories, whereas Taiwan, at the time when that was discovered, did not. I don't know if Taiwan has changed that or not. I have not kept up to date on Taiwanese labor laws. I mean, for now they mostly China is safer than the Taiwanese ones. They do have some laws like fire exits and a maximum number of people allowed in a building. But no, they don't have any major regulatory committee that can go through and check that. But if there is laws in place, whether or not they're obeyed is a different question. But I mean, pretty much every company in the world uses China or Taiwan, or they used to use Mexico for cheap labor too, but I think they switched from Mexico to like Honduras or Ecuador or someplace like that. Yeah, no, the working conditions aside, they do pay people horribly. Tutors, if they can be afforded, teach the children the matters of language, faith, culture, and etiquette and law. In both your families, these early years are instructional help determine where a youth's interests lie and to which livelihood he or she would be best suited. Yeah, it's not great. At the time it was effectively slave labor in Taiwan or slightly paid labor in China. That's what it was at the time, and Nike at the time switched all their factories over. I have not kept up with it, but ever since then, when I was like, I don't know, this happened when I was 10. Even then, no dice for me on Nike. Also, the fact that they pretty much own the entire city that I live in, because they own the university, and the university owns the city. So, yeah. I mean, the city itself is fine until it has to kowtow to the university, which it does always. Every time. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't buy because of how and where they're made, or a lot of stores that I don't use. Like, I've never been into a Hobby Lobby. And it wasn't until later that I found out that Hobby Lobby was using... I can't remember what the last scandal was, but I stopped using Hobby Lobby. Or, sorry, actively not using Hobby Lobby because they were smuggling priceless artifacts out of countries. No, as far as I'm aware, there's not even a Chick-fil-A near me, but no, I don't eat Chick-fil-A. I do my best to never eat fast foods. Not because fast food it's not healthy for you, but it's not what's the word I'm trying to say, or words I'm trying to say. Um, I don't eat a lot of fast food because they do a lot of exploitative practices on their own employees, regardless of what state or country you live in. Um, Effectively using the "you're lucky to have this job" tactic. So, I mean, obviously some chains are better than others and some restaurants are better than others, but I've known a lot of people that have worked in fast food, and a number of them have informed me of the effectively "you're lucky to have this job and we could fire you at any moment" mentality that their employers had. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do find myself eating, like a McDonald's every once in a while, or Carl's Jr., but I actively go out of my way to not eat fast food. Ouch. I've never worked for a place that was so bad that I had to go out. I've worked for places... No, that's not true. That's not true. I worked for a call center. That the call center itself was fine, but the client that we served was one that I did not agree with the sales tactics they wanted us to use. They wanted us to actively manipulate people into buying their products. Girls begin to reveal if they are more interested in living as independent or as independent women. Thereby gaining an education similar to that of the boys. Bam. All they have to do is show an interest in that world, and they're given education. No. I will admit that when I was much younger, when the Backstreet Boys were brand new, I was into pop music. Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, all that canned sort of music, but hey man, all the best for you. I personally, as far as music, prefer either instrumental stuff, especially video game music. I love video game music. That's not an uncommon practice. A significant portion of places are legally not allowed to give out day-old stuff because of the contract that they have with whoever the maker is. Now, if they're making their own, then that's being wasteful of the ingredients, especially, like, you, as a company, you, obviously there's, like, higher demand and lower demand days, but you kind of get a feel after a few years of how your area fits into like how busy it is. Like when I worked at the Office Depot, which is a fine company, they're not particularly amazing or horrible, they're fine. We would have, like, I could tell you that on most Tuesdays, for instance, we'll have, about 200 customers throughout the whole day. Oh, damn. Because, yeah, like, when I was working for Office Depot, we would frequently have to well, not frequently, but if we had, like, Coca-Cola expire on the shelf, if it was bottle Coke, Coke would take it back to their factory and do whatever it is they do with it, probably dispose of it. But if it was cans of Coke in a box that we sold for some reason, we would have to throw those in the garbage because Coke didn't want those back. And the company wasn't going to just hand them out because in the city I live in, Eugene, we have a significant homeless epidemic. in the, and I say epidemic in a very meaningful way, because a large number of the homeless community that we have are communally and self-destructive. And in order to prevent the homeless from believing that our trash can was a place that they could routinely get food or whatnot, even if it is expired, we would have to do things like open up the cans of Coke and dump them out so that they wouldn't, like, or if we had like food items, we would have to figure out a way to destroy them in such a way that they couldn't be taken, simply because of the destructive element that might be caused by the homeless community in Eugene, Oregon. That's not to say that all the homeless here are bad. I frequently have to confront them on a daily basis, and there are certainly some that are self-policing. Some small communities of the homeless that are self-policing and they clean up after themselves, and they're not destructive, but the vast majority of them are. And it sucks when I have to deal with them, because they don't care who they hurt, regard themselves, someone else, property. And those are actually as a security officer, those are the ones that are the scary ones. That's very true. A girl who's destined for a traditional role may focus on household skills and the gentle arts. What are the gentle arts? I'm assuming that's things like painting, jewelry, things like that. For middle class, artisans, and the poor, such a choice in education is a luxury. Oh, mental health in our country is abysmal. Any training for boys or girls take place in the family trade, be it pot making or caravan driving. If men or women of a cultured group wear veils, the boys and girls will begin to follow suit at the age of 12. A boy is commonly considered a man, and a girl a woman at age 16. They are allowed to marry at this time, though their unions may have been arranged years earlier. Mental health in this country is abysmal from both a perspective of general populace education, so like people's understanding of what mental illnesses even are and how they function, all the way up to treatment and diagnosis. And there's a stigma placed on pretty much anything. There have been roads made and destroyed over the years by our government, mostly destroyed. All right. Oh, the slavery section. This is a very interesting section that has a lot of potentially negative. Oh, we do not want all. Why did I select all? A lot of very potential things to go wrong in discussion. So in Dungeons and Dragons, slavery usually falls into two camps in the campaign setting. Either it doesn't have it at all, or it has it in a similar fashion to the way it existed in our own world. Al-Qadim is an odd exception. And we'll get to why in a moment. I'm not going to read this whole thing because there's way too much to read. But The gist of it is a person cannot a person cannot sell someone else into slavery. Someone has to choose to become a slave. Now, what that means is that if you are a slave, you do the general bidding of certain tasks for which you were purchased for your owner, but your owner has the obligation of proper societal treatment of you. And children cannot be slaves, with few exceptions. Also, slavery is an alternative to prison sentences. But why would someone sell themselves into slavery? Someone would sell themselves into slavery, for instance, if their spouse died and they were not an independent person capable of making money to survive on their own. They could sell themselves into slavery. Their boarding and their housing and food and whatnot will be taken care of. Essentially, they sell themselves into a job where they never see any actual pay. All of their job is for housing and food and like clothing. Where the only option for a child into slavery is the Mamluks, which are slave soldiers. And what they do is they will go to orphanages and try and recruit children into their ranks. Now, once a child decides to become a Mamluk, they are a Mamluk for life. They will be sold as an entire mercenary unit to somebody for a conflict, or they might be sold independently as like a bodyguard or something like that once they reach a certain age and training. But that's kind of the gist of slavery in Al-Qadim. Also, a slave owner can relinquish slavery at any time, should they choose, or if the slave somehow earns the means by which to purchase themselves out of slavery from their master. Like I said, it's an odd, weird subject, and it works very differently in Al-Qadim than it does any other campaign setting. And it's kind of an uncomfortable thing to bring up. Just like slavery's kind of a weird, uncomfortable thing to talk about. Especially considering the fact that it largely relies on the exploitation of another. But because it is effectively a willing alternative to normal jobs or prison sentence, it's slightly less uncomfortable. Personally, I only use the slavery stuff in Al-Qadim for the Mamluks, because the idea of an elite, like that's the only thing that I use slavery for. Otherwise, everyone is either like a low-paid servant or something like that, a low-paid employee of an individual or company or whatever, which is not much better, but it is. Around when sitting around the game table, not having to say, the slave does this, the slave does that, is much... Just not having to say that is much better. Um, but I use Mamluks because I like the idea of they're kind of this campaign's like Spartans in a way. They're soldiers from a young age trained to be like the best of the best. They're typically well armed. They work well in a unit. So if you want to run like a militaristic campaign, running a single group of Mamluks is very good. Or if you just want to have like someone have the option for someone to hire a bodyguard, they can buy a Mamluk. But it is one of those things that is in the campaign setting, and because it is unique in the way it is treated in the campaign setting, I'm going to keep it as is for the world guide. Because when someone else uses this, who knows what they're going to use it for? Maybe they're going to run a campaign where, freeing slaves or something like along those lines is very important. Well, then they're going to need to have, like, maybe there is a ring of slavers that is not working like they should, and the characters need to go in there and take them out. Okay, so where are we? Alright, do we have... Cannot control F. May result in fines. Okay, okay. Here we go. So where are we? Slaveholders may not cast out or sell a slave due to illness. Where is this? Come on. Due to illness or age. They are free, healthy slaves at any time. The owner can grant a group of slaves freedom. Slave may receive the owner's permission to marry a free spouse. And they become and thereby also become free. While it is true that the law requires slave owners to treat their slaves well, the Mamluks, a much more tangible power, are the greatest enforcers. The most elite military forces in Zakra. Okay. So, while it is true... Right there. That's our first page on slavery. Oh boy. There's going to be a lot, isn't there? Yep, there's a lot, all right. Actually, can I just... cut? Paste. Bam! Look at that. Good job, me. Okay, so where were we on here? And can we get the rest of this onto a single page? $57. What time is it? It's 8 o'clock. So, as I frequently do, I wanted to talk to you guys about a subject that has been on my mind as of late. I mean, we got a little off topic, or actually off topic is not the right word. We didn't quite get to our topic because we had a brief discussion about some of the horrible things that humans do to others. Oh, hold on. Hold that thought. We are going to take a short break, and we will come back with more of this, Al-Qadim, and this discussion that I wanted to have earlier. See you in a moment. All right, so I just got done discussing a few things. Oh, sorry, camera. Discussing a few things with housemate. We may have found a place, which is wonderful because we have 5 days left before we have to leave this one. So, but more to come on that. The topic that I wanted to talk about, because it was on my mind, is relatable to this, is the idea of knowing everything in a campaign setting or a world. Like, let's take, for instance, here's an example, the Warhammer 40k world. There is so much written about the Warhammer 40k world that it is... there's no mystery left. And everything is known, and it's actually a problem. And if you might be thinking to yourself, but why is it a problem? That just gives people more information about the thing that they love. But it also takes away all the mystery, which is important especially for any game. Not knowing everything about everything. We don't need to know the color of Eldar shit, for instance. But I guarantee you, if you look it up, you'll find it. Because that is how detailed stuff is in the world of 40k. That is how many books there are. Hell, you can't see it because all my books are gone, but I have cultivated some of the better books in the collection of 40k novels, and I have like 24. And I've only read like 3 of them. And this is the type of thing that... Because 40k is not the only one. Star Wars is also the same way. People love Star Wars so much that they need to know everything about it. To the point where it loses all of its mystery, its mystique, and is no longer fun. Where's the fun in knowing everything about everything? And the worst part about it is, I can't remember how Roland described it. His phallus of truth. Anytime nerds get together, they must compare their knowledge of something, and that's where the actually comes in, and someone who's not even in the conversation interjects and starts laying down some obscure rule or bit of lore that they read in a book somewhere that explains why you're wrong, or why one of your parties are wrong, or both of you are wrong. And from the context of D&D, or of any role-playing game, the reason why this is bad is because when you're running a game, you are in control of the world. It's your world, not anybody else's. You might be using common elements, a common setting, but just because something happened, hell, even in a game that you were running before, does not necessarily mean that that same thing happened, or is happening, or is going to happen in the campaign setting you're running now. And this is something I have to remind myself every so often, because Roland, great dungeon master though he is, decided to make his own role-playing game. Completely his own role-playing game. And it is a wonderful game. Break Action is one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. But there is a particular event that takes place in the world of Break Action that changes everything. And in every game that we've played since the initial one where this event took place, I've asked him, so, did this happen? Are we in a world before this or after this? And the reason I'm asking, as one of the playtesters who's played in this campaign setting, is because I want to know because there are certain things that cascade after this event. And I want to know that the kind of information that is available to my character at the time. Like, I'm trying to use it to create character motivations, but he could just simply, he could say, no, this has not happened yet, and be like, oh, okay. And then I can build my character accordingly with that type of with the information before that event. But who's to say that's ever going to happen? In this case, I'm not going to give away too much because it's unlikely that any of you are going to be playing Break Action in one of Roland's campaigns. New York City gets nuked. And the blame is put on a group of freedom fighters within the United States known as the Edenites. And then the world goes crazy and goes everywhere in the world, essentially starts hunting down the Edenites or people like them because they believe that they are all extremists who are going to do the same thing everywhere. And then this big organization comes to power all over the world, and it, like I said, cascading event. So it's... Nerddom is a weird thing. And sometimes I hate being a nerd. Because when I look at some of the things that have been done or said or made in the name of fandom, I want to lash out at the people that do these sorts of things, but I know that kind of thing is only an encouragement to them and won't actually help the situation. Which is why, whenever I'm DMing a game, one of the first things that I say is like, hey, all right, this is my world. The things that you have read elsewhere may or may not apply, including rules in this book that we are using. No, that's going to overwrite page 56 because I'm a dumbass. God damn it. So I wonder who wrote the Book of Love. If we can get that old one back. Oh, yes we can. 56, you are back. Yes, replace 56, please. Okay. The most notable example, if you want a direct example of the kind of thing I'm talking about, is the Kelly Marie Tran thing from Star Wars. Now, did I believe that her character was particularly important to the storyline as a whole? No. Did I like every scene that she was in? No. Do I think that she personally should have been attacked constantly online? Fuck no. And I I decided at that point that I'm no longer a fan of Star Wars. Not because Star Wars isn't great. I love Star Wars. But if being a fan means attacking an actress for playing a role, I'm not a fan. That's my take on things. What did Kelly Marie Tran do to cause that kind of hatred? I didn't see anything. I think she acted her part very well, and it was either poorly written or poorly directed. But that's not her fault. She's not the writer or the director. But that's the kind of thing that nerds, geeks, dorks, fans, super fans, otaku, whatever you want to call yourself, need to be aware of, is that we as a group hold a lot of power over other people because oh no, that's definitely supposed to be and you might not think about it, but like whenever you claim to be a fan of something, you'll frequently hear someone like, well, what do you know about this thing? Like, what do you know about this thing? What do you know about Star Wars? How can you be a Star Wars fan if you don't know this? Or if you like that? Like, how can you be a Star Wars fan if you like the prequels? I've heard that. Hell, I've probably said that. Okay, well, we have a lot more on this page, so we are going to, or on this subject, given these considerations, huh? I can certainly do that. There we are. That goes away. That goes away. Goes away. Come on. Oh, no, we're just going to do the other thing again. I don't remember the shortcut for cut, which is probably a bad thing, but doesn't matter that much. Alright, so this is 39? Or 39, 59? But as a group, we are the gatekeepers of our fandoms. And I get why people are protective over their fandoms. I get it. I do. It's something you love. You want to make sure it stays safe. But at what cost? At what point are you no longer keeping it safe and just stopping other people from enjoying it? Now we have the power to gatekeep, essentially. But we also have the power to educate and understand and make people feel welcome. And I think that those abilities are far more powerful than, although much slower acting in most cases, into getting people to accept nerddom as a whole. Like, we've... Alright, nerds, listen up. I get it. I grew up a nerd too. I got pushed around and whatnot. But, I'm gonna give you a little secret. We won. That's right. The nerds won. Star Wars and the Marvel movies. Two of the biggest franchises to ever hit the silver screen. Make more money every year than most nerd communities combined. Like, if I get all the nerds in my area, I don't think we would touch a single Marvel movie in our lifetime to what it made in probably its opening weekend. We won. It's okay. You don't need to be so harsh when it comes to people. If someone says that they're a gamer, but they play Farmville, guess what? They enjoy playing a game. They're a gamer. Hey, pen and paper RPG fans. LARPing is role-playing too. It's okay. Just because someone likes something differently than you, or likes it in a different way, does not mean the way you like it, or the thing that you like, is wrong, or bad, or evil in the same way. It does not diminish it because they like it in a different way. Calm down, nerds. It's gonna be fine. Take a deep breath. If you need to, go get your inhaler or your glasses or your security device or your pet. Go get your lucky D20. It's gonna be okay. And I know I'm probably coming across as a little condescending right now, but sometimes that's needed. Because some people don't get it without that little bit of cynicism being thrown in. I came to this realization a long time ago that being a nerd, everyone is a nerd for something, unless they have no passion. Then they're not a nerd. All being a nerd is loving something a lot. Car nerds, totally a thing. Sports nerds. Did you know batting averages are done based on a mathematical calculation of 1,000 swings, 1,000 times up to bat? Baseball fans are nerds. Hey, Otaku, it's okay if you don't like Studio Ghibli. I personally don't agree with you, but F it. Who am I? I'm some random guy on the internet who's trying to make a product based on a D&D campaign setting he really likes. Who am I to you? Maybe someone, if you enjoy the content that I put out. Maybe not. That's up to you. I can't make up your mind for you. You are your own fully formed human being with your own thoughts, and that's okay. And you know what? It's okay for someone else to have their own thoughts as well. I don't mean to get preachy, but let's be fair here and call the pot and kettle black. Our joined communities of nerddom are not exactly as welcoming as we would frequently like people to believe they are. There's a lot of animosity, even between freaking Twitch channels. And I don't get it. I don't get why. Everyone who runs a Twitch channel or a YouTube channel, we're all in it for the same thing. We want to do the thing we enjoy, hope you enjoy it, and maybe make a little bit of money. That's about it. It's not like what we're trying to do, what we're all trying to do here is not like something crazy or unheard of. We're trying to do that thing. Remember when we were kids and people said you could be anything you wanted? Or if they said, find out what you love and do that, because then you'll never work a day in your life. That's all we're trying to do. There doesn't need to be so much hatred, calling people fake fans or whatever. It's all okay. Now, if you were here the other night, you may have noticed someone in our chat who was trying to... How can I put this delicately? Convince me that they were tipping a whole hell of a lot of money in euros. And while I initially thought it was true with the first tip, which I was blown out of my mind over, because it was 200 euros, a ridiculous amount of money for a single tip. They proceeded to continue to do this to the point where I started getting suspicious, and then they asked to be a mod. Well, I did not give them this power, but I did, after the stream, ban them, because what they were trying to do is they were trying to defraud me into allowing them to be a mod, even though I have no idea who they are or anything like that. And they didn't actually do even the tipping. That's the part where the defraud comes in. They were just putting it in as a chat command. You know, so and so does this. Lurks is frequently the one that you will see people do. Activates lurk mode, that sort of thing. But so I banned that person, because they were trying to defraud me. And I don't know why they wanted mod status aside from to ban everyone in chat, maybe? I don't know. I'm a little confused about that, but, well, needless to say, they didn't get it. Because you're going to have to wake up a lot earlier in the morning to troll me than that. Even though I did initially fall for it, I'm not going to lie. But what really tipped me off was eventually they started messing up. They didn't include the euro sign in the euro denomination sign in one of them, and then later they tried to drop one. They tried to insinuate that they dropped one for 10,000 euros, or for 1,000 euros, but they used a comma instead of a period, making it seem like 1,000, like 10,000, except not. It was very strange, just in general, like looking back on the situation. Or the very first person that I ever had to ban, who came in during our first 24-hour stream, I want to say, and just started saying things like, oh, you need to go check out this other Twitch streamer. They're making fun of you and, like, calling your stream shit and things like that. And then I just banned them. That kind of thing is not going to get to me. I worked retail at a toy store during Black Friday. And liked it. Liked it to the point when even when I got another job that paid more and had better hours, when the next Christmas season came up, I went back as a seasonal employee to that toy store just so I could work the holiday season again. That's how much I enjoyed it. And still do. I kind of miss working Black Friday. I wouldn't do it for like a Walmart though. I don't particularly like Walmarts. But B, the people, I've seen the videos of people at Walmarts, and they go crazy during the holiday season. That being said, Toys R Us, I've been punched in the face at Toys R Us during the holiday season. Actually, that story is hilarious. I got punched in the face by this woman who was fighting with another woman over a toy when there was another one on the shelf. I mean, they both got escorted out of the building, and neither one got to buy any of the stuff they had come in for, because they assaulted each other and me. But yeah, that's how desperately they wanted this toy. There was actually two of them there, and they were fighting over one. Actually, I want to say there was like 3 or 4 of them. But, holiday season makes people very strange. We might need to do some art for this page, because the Ruined Kingdoms is not quite gonna cut it. So, what images? Ogre? No. Hmm. No, stealing from a... No. Temple fight, that doesn't work. I thought we had... Oh, desert battle. That doesn't quite fit. Although, that is a very good image. I mean, let's just take a moment to appreciate how awesome this image is. Yet again. I think we've, like, taken the time to look at this image every episode. That's how good it is. And I don't think Ogre Battle works well for this section either. No. Temple fight. Maybe temple fight. Let's see. Let's see what else we've got. I mean, we could also just put something there that's not directly related. Like... no, that's too big. Trapped by a Marid is too big. God, maybe we just don't have a good one for this. You know, that's fine. Although we haven't had an image in a while, so we'll want to put one in. But our next section is the Desert Tribes. So let's see here. Let's open... That doesn't help. That's the one. So let's see here. Let's open up... Yeah, let's open up this one. Yeah, there we go. So, speaking a bit more on why I think that as a whole, the because I got a little off topic. Let's be fair here. That happens a lot though. Um, why knowing too much about a setting, a world, a game is detrimental. It goes well beyond the phallus of truth, although that is a significant portion of it. When you throw down your phallus of truth at the game shop, at it's here at the game shop, at the gaming table, online. What good are you doing? Seriously, I want to know. Like, and I've done this before. Everyone who's a nerd has done this. What good are you doing? What are you contributing to the conversation in a meaningful way other than to show off how much you know? Which, if that's your whole point and purpose, like that's all you want to do is show off how much you know on a subject, fine. You know what? You get to have that. If it's to educate someone about something they're mistaken, please be careful on how you approach that, because a lot of people will think you're just being a smarmy asshole. Typo. It's a delicate situation that you will find yourself in if you try to navigate those waters. And I certainly don't envy you. So we're also going to open Desert Queen and see. Thinking about putting this on either side. So that still needs to be 24. Okay, so let's see. Okay, yeah, we need to move these over. That's not gonna work the way I wanted it to. Yep, nope. Okay. So how do I fix this in such a way to make sense? Oh, there we go. I think that's aligned. And yeah, I think that's good. So what is this? 65. All right, so, and with that, we are going to call it, because next week, or sorry, I should say next time, we have to start cutting up our world map so that we can place it alongside each of these areas. So, like the tribes of the high desert, we're going to cut out the high desert and place that in its own page so that we can use this section as a reference. Now, tomorrow we're heading back into our look back of the Elder Scrolls series with Oblivion, so hope you'll join me for that, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And Saturday, we are having a I Fucked Up stream where we will be starting off with Warframe just to let people trickle in before we jump on into the Jackbox Party Packs 3 and 4. Then we'll take a short break so I can get some food in me, and then we will do the remainder of our time from noon to 9 playing nothing but Realm Royal. Remember, that's going to be Saturday, Pacific time, noon, 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I hope you will join me for that as well. And assuming we get this place that we are looking at, there will be a hiatus for next week's streams. Well, there's going to be a hiatus for next week's streams regardless, until I have internet set up wherever I end up moving to. So, this Saturday will be the last stream until I get internet again, and then we will keep going with everything that we got. So I hope you guys will stick with me through that short hiatus until I once again have internet. In the meantime, have a good night. I'll see you later.